Yeah, 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 yeah,
Chill with that, baby. What game is another? I'll let you know I got you. Hold on.
Got a young nigga with me and I swear to God, them boys gon' go.
Atlanta's traffic is infamous all around the country, but what's often seen as a failure of infrastructure, some argue is actually tied to segregation. An author recently published an article in the New York Times pointing to segregation as the reason for so much of our traffic. We talked to Kevin Cruz today about his article and his book White Flight to see if we could find any solutions to Atlanta's traffic problem.
The rise of the modern expressway movement, the interstate highways in the 50s, is really obviously a post-war transformation, and that hit American cities at the same time. A lot of them are wrestling with issues of segregation.
Cruz says there are two ways constructing highways played into segregation: making the highway so that it destroys poor black neighborhoods, or make a highway that separates them from white neighborhoods.
Local officials have a say in where these roads get placed, and it shouldn't be a surprise that as they're thinking about where they're going to drop highways and destroy neighborhoods, they invariably single out what they see as the worst neighborhoods in their communities. And these are overwhelmingly poor communities, and in most places these are overwhelmingly African American, or in some places Latino neighborhoods.
The split is most noticeable along I-20. A report from the Georgia Historical Society says that while deciding the route of I-20, the Atlanta Bureau of Planning said it would be the boundary between white and African American communities.
With that logic in mind is how you get the kind of the contorted and weird ways in which the highways in Atlanta and other cities take place. It don't really make sense if you're thinking about just from a pure traffic facilitation standpoint, we would put it this way.
So can it be fixed? Kevin says there have been a lot of innovative ideas about how to fix Atlanta's traffic problem, but there's one resounding answer that comes up time and time again, yet keeps getting shut down.
Underground tunnels throughout the city. One guy had jokingly wrote in that he wanted a series of zip lines along the skyscrapers. And the thing that comes up time and time again is just expand MARTA. And it's clearly people inside the city, just please expand MARTA. But the folks in the suburbs don't want that.
Kevin says ever since MARTA popped up in the mid-60s, people in Atlanta's suburbs have been trying to stay disconnected from downtown Atlanta. In March of this year, voters in Gwinnett County once again struck down a measure that would have funded a $5 billion MARTA expansion. That vote came as census data shows Gwinnett becoming more and more diverse, with African Americans now making up nearly 30% of the population, Hispanics nearly 22%. But according to GeorgiaVotes.com, 60% of the people who voted were white, 75% of those over the age of 50.
And they flee to these areas to leave the city behind. And they see MARTA as those problems from the city creeping back out to get them. Cobb and Gwinnett overwhelmingly reject MARTA when it comes up for votes in the 60s and early 70s, and are still resistant, of course, to it today.
We have a lot more from the interview with Kevin Cruz up on our website, 11live.com. It was fascinating. He talked so much about the reluctance to MARTA playing into desegregating schools in the South. You can check it out now on the website.
I have no license.
I'm Fox 5 News Edge at 11. Almost 2 full weeks of work. That's how much time the average Atlantan spent sitting in traffic congestion last year. 70 hours. That's according to a new study out by INRIX, which ranks Atlanta as the 8th most congested city in the world. News Edge reporter Claire Sims spoke to planners here in Atlanta about what that means for the metro area and our future.
We're along the downtown connector where no doubt you have experienced some of that congestion firsthand. And while the ranking doesn't really come as a surprise to Metro Atlanta drivers, leaders here say they do have a plan to address it. Anyone brave enough to get behind the wheel at rush hour knows Atlanta's got a rap for bad backups.
Atlanta traffic is terrible.
It's pretty bad. It can hit at any time and out of nowhere.
A new study out this week by data company INRIX ranks Metro Atlanta as the #8 worst city in the world for congestion, with drivers spending an average of 70 hours in gridlock in 2017. But John Orr with the Atlanta Regional Commission says it's not all bad news.
Congestion goes with being one of the most successful communities or regions in the world.
Orr says 100,000 people moved to the 20-county metro area last year, and Atlanta had the second highest employment growth in the country. Traffic does, however, come with a cost. The INRIX study shows congestion cost Atlantans $7.1 billion last year. That's why the ARC says it's important for state and local leaders to continue moving forward with regional transportation improvements like increasing transit options and bolstering the highway system with things like express lanes.
Well, it really does boil down to an economic prosperity issue. If we really can't afford to not make these investments because we want to stay as much ahead of congestion as we can.
And drivers say they're ready for whatever will help them spend fewer hours and fewer dollars in log jams like this.
I mean, we've been trying to figure out that question since I was born, because Atlanta's always been bad with traffic.
So again, Atlanta ranks 8th worst in the world, but 4th worst in the U.S., behind Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco. Reporting in Midtown, Claire Sims, Fox 5 News.